everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. This is your extra show for the week. My name is Cammy Bell, and thank you so much for joining me on this very interesting pod, I think, this week. And here to join me to talk about not only last night's result against Livingston in the League Cup, which sees us through to the semi-final at Hampden against Hearts, but also looking forward to a visit from the team that always likes to try their hardest against Rangers. Our friends from the north, Aberdeen, is my good amigo, Mr. Kevin Armstrong. Kevin, thank you for joining me on this week's Extra.
Always a pleasure, mate. It's been a strange week in Glasgow. We expected a big storm in more ways than one, and nothing really materialised, so we move on.
Oh, look at the way how you just prep that material, Kevin. That's why this is just, the leading Rangers podcast as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on it. Kevin, it was an interesting game against Livingston last night because when the team news came out, I think it provoked a little bit of a reaction in me that felt to an extent as if that was a team that was based on the manager making sure that there was really no quarter given for any potential risk that Livingston would come and give us a game. We couldn't play a weakened team. I am very much of the belief that the manager is playing for his job at the moment. I hate saying that. I hate seeing Rangers managers under pressure, but there's no getting away from it, right? That is the general undercurrent at the moment. So we can expect to see Robbie McCrory, I thought, in goals, maybe a rest for James Tavernier. And then when I saw the lineup, I kind of felt that those things were never going to happen because he couldn't take the risk, is the simple fact is. Van in at left back, and we will be talking about him shortly. When you saw the lineup, Kevin, what was your thoughts?
I agree with you, mate. The predicament we find ourselves in over the last couple of weeks, this was very much what's the old phrase, pick a team as if your job depended on it. And he did that because you're right. Normally, a cup game against Livingston, you would expect a wee bit of rotation, perfect opportunity to use your cup goalkeeper as the modern way of football goes. Perhaps introduce some youngsters like Bailey Rice or maybe even a Lovelace. But Michael Beale is not in that situation. He does not have that luxury. So with his hands tied behind his back when it comes to injuries, he picked the strongest possible team and the team that he thought could win the game. And he got it right. We'll give him credit. We're not going to sit here and pretend that it was wonderful swashbuckling football, but it was a job that got the job done, or as his team that got the job done, I should say. And we move into the next round. But the problems aren't going away. But this is the first step, and they say every journey begins with a single step. This is one of the first steps to hopefully, as you say, because we don't like here sitting moaning about managers and putting them under pressure, but this is one of the first steps, hopefully, in a recovery. And here, we're at Hampden, we're 2 games away from a trophy.
Well, we'll come on to that, I'm sure, in due course. I think the thing, and listen, I don't want it to be the case that I'm presumptuous within this. I think in our recent history has shown we have not been so laden with trophies that we can afford to be nonchalant about it. And whether it's from the manager, the team, the support, we have to be able to try and go after trophies. And I'm a little bit biased on the League Cup, Kev, because I've always seen the League Cup as the Rangers Cup, right? I grew up in teams that won that, in some cases at a canter. But it's obviously the one that we've been missing, right? We won 55, we won the Scottish Cup after Seville, but I want to retain the League Cup. All that being said and done, however, I also think that when your main opponents or your main challengers in terms of you being able to win that tournament have already been knocked out, arrogant as this may sound, then I think it defaults to you. So therefore, it almost becomes yours to lose. Now, don't get me wrong. Yes, I'm looking at the Hibs final. There's nothing like, being able to see when Celtic go out of it that you can then kind of think, well, this is in the bag or blah, blah, what have you. And then we've had our fingers burned with it. So it's not a guarantee by any means. I'm not saying that. I've got a lot of respect for David Martindale. I do actually like him. And I think that he would have used the atmosphere around Ibrox and going into the game as a plus for his players. And we made mention last night, you and I did the car pod last night on our Patreon site with Colin, where we felt that first goal, I am still to this day, like, I mean, genuinely, I'm nearly 24 hours later, Kev, and I'm still amazed he never gave a foul for it.
It's a baffling decision, but we've seen in recent weeks baffling decisions with the use of VAR, not just in Rangers games, but in other games in Scottish football. And like you, that incident happened right in front of me, and I didn't even celebrate the goal because I thought he's pulling this back, as we discussed last night, this sort of infuriating thing that referees do where it's an offside or it's a foul and it's clear as day, and they let the play go on, and then inevitably a team scores and then they pull it back, and you're like, why did you not stop it 30 seconds ago? I was convinced that was happening. And again, like we mentioned last night, the Rudvan get awarded a foul against them a couple of minutes later in the exact same position for a lesser offence. So
a shoulder to shoulder, no less, which when you're tackling a dwarf is quite some feat. However, I couldn't believe that happened. I genuinely couldn't. But yeah, you're right. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's just it's the baffling world of officiating in Scottish football. But David Martindale, you're right. I love listening to him, and I thought he was really funny when he went into the press conference last night and he said, have you got the press and the audio from what happened the last time we were here a couple of weeks ago? Just copy and paste that because it was the exact same game. And I think we scored, was it 3 of our goals at the exact same minute of the game?
Yeah, that's really weird. Yeah. All those 3 goals all scored at the exact same minute as the league game against Livy at home. Yeah.
It's just crazy. So, I mean, he was spot on when he said it was a copy and paste job because Livy fell away from it at the end. And with them doing that, we certainly relaxed more. And you could see the difference between the start 15 minutes and the last 15 minutes is night and day for me. The way Rangers passed with intent and the pressure was off them. And anyone that's played football at any level knows it's much easier to pass and move and just do things naturally when you're winning a game by 2-3 goals, because it just, all the pressure's off you and you can just feel free to express yourself. And with the way the team had felt the wrath of the support for against Motherwell, the start had to be good. We got the early goal. We eventually get the second, and the minute that second goal goes in, Livy's game's up. They have to come out, and then we just pick them off. It's still that early bit, Cammy. That's the bit that we still need to get more goals, especially from our forwards.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want people to come in and listen to this week because I genuinely do believe we've had some tough games to talk about, right? But at the same point, I didn't want it to feel like, oh, here we go again, we've won and we're going to talk about the negatives. We will have to talk about the forward line because there's just simply no way of avoiding it. But I do think you made a great point, Kev, right? Because where we talk about, early starts, taking the game to them, etc., sometimes I feel, right, opposition managers will come, and David Martindale's smart enough, right, and he's done this before with Livingston, and I know that we've turned his team over pretty successfully now twice across the space of the last few weeks, right? But he's also brought Livingston teams to us that have completely confounded us. And I sometimes think opposition managers, right, especially when they know that Rangers are not, flying high, what they want to do is set in to contain. And they then know the crowd will get a bit antsy, will get on top of it, blah, 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 have you. So I don't necessarily expect Rangers teams to have to come out and blow teams away in the first 30 minutes and, finish the game as a contest and all that. I think it's really hard to do that when your opposition team format is just basically set to frustrate you, right? Because, they just clam in. It's, 10 men behind the ball, an outlet, that's about it, right? And we did start well last night. I think a bit of fortune, let's be honest, with the Seema goal. I can't take anything away from the finish, by the way, Kevin, because I thought his finish was so brilliant. It was so abnormally brilliant for one of our strikers to just simply go, I can't really be bothered looking at other options. So I suppose I'll just finish this myself and just curled it beautifully past, is it George in goals?
Yeah, Shamal George.
Yeah, just a tremendous finish. But then we get to what we've seemed to have been doing recently, that even if we start brightly, it just starts to fade away. And then after that first 10, 15 minute spell, it just kind of became a little bit pedestrian. We were trying things. We maybe weren't taking as great care with the ball. Passes just weren't, finding their man, or, there was just a wrong decision at the critical moments. And pretty much I felt as if we had the lead, but if Livy were to maybe give us a bit of a bloody nose and equalise, I think that the atmosphere starts to turn, and I don't think we get to half time without some real criticism coming from the stands, if I'm being perfectly honest.
No, you're right. I mean, Livy's game plan does not change at 1-0, right? Nothing. They just want to stay in the game because David Martindale knows he's been here before. He's done it before. Get to the last 10 minutes. He'll have looked at Motherwell at the weekend, and then suddenly the fans will get grumpy if it's 1-0. They'll get a bit edgy. The players will suddenly think we need to hold on to this because we don't want extra time. And then they'll get one chance because you always get one chance at 1-0 down. And it could have so easily happened. I think they had a corner just about, was it an hour in or so?
Yeah.
And the boy headed just wide. So that's probably the old sliding doors moment of the game. Hey, it never went in, but I say, but there's still work to be done. I did watch the highlights today, and I thought it was very telling. Just the way you described it was, they showed a couple of early moments from the match with like the Tav shot, and it was a wonderful save by Shamal George. And then they showed the goal, obviously the replay, and then I think it cut to like 57 minutes or something. It was just, nothing happened.
Yeah. I know. I was the same as well because there wasn't too much kind of coming out of the game. The big thing that did actually happen that probably impacted us was Kamal Roof going off. Went off at half time, Kev, but in the post match, we found out that it looked likely that he probably had a bit of a tweak of his groin midway through the first half. Elected to play on with it. I think there was some comments about Bale saying, maybe we should have been told or blah, blah, what have you. I think that's a bit of a throwaway comment, if I'm being honest, because he's probably like, if we'd scored a second goal, then I probably would have taken Roof off because I would have said, right, there isn't a desperate need for him to be on the park. Game's comfortable, contest is kind of over, not a problem. But the thing, and I think I said it to you guys during the game last night, was if Livingston were to equalise after half-time, before we really settled into it, because again, another thing this Rangers team's guilty of is taking its time to get warmed into the second half. If Livingston had equalised, and given how hapless some of our forward play has been recently, some of the guys involved within that, I could not tell you where a second goal would have come from Rangers if we had to try and go back in front again.
The second goal did come from a wonderful run from Yilmaz, which we'll talk about. But I get your point. There was nothing in the bench. Now, that's not the manager's fault. I mean, I know we brought Dessers on, but he's pretty much bang out of form. Interestingly, I thought there was one later on in the game where Tav got the ball wide, and you're thinking Tav's going to light it up and shoot. But I think he tried to sort of square it to Lammers to sort of give him a goal and give him a wee boost. Whether he does that in 0-0 is a different story. But you're right. There's just a lack of goals around this team at the moment, not just from the forward line, but with the players that we're missing, your Cantwells, etc., your Lawrences. There's a lack of goals in midfield as well, and for far too long we've been too reliant on Tav to chip in with a goal, a free kick, a penalty, or whatever. But last night, I mean, I said to a few boys running about me, there's not a lot on this bench because Scott Wrights came from headlining New Edmonton House for the last 3 months to starting at the weekend and then on the bench last night. And can we credit with him assist later on because he never touched the ball? But
no, his best work was by not touching the ball. Yeah.
But it's the manager's a strange situation here just now because he's had to go back to a lot of players that we thought were frozen out. Ben Davies in defence, Yilmaz has sort of come out of nowhere. Rabbi Matondo, of course. So we do it, and it's all down to the forward line because we're just not scoring enough goals. And again, last night, Cammy, you're thinking to yourself, like Livingston in the Cup, we're 1-0 up. Surely they'll come out and give Dessers a couple of opportunities. But when he got those opportunities, he never took the shot on a lot of times. I think we half the main stand was just shout and shoot him. I really don't know how we play our way into this because it's so hard as a forward to play your way into form, isn't it?
It is. Listen, I totally get that. I want to talk. I will talk in detail a little bit about the forward line, but it would be remiss of us, Kev, not to talk about that wonderful goal by Ridvan Yilmaz. Picks up the ball in his own half, goes directly down the middle, like something that I think Livingston probably weren't set up for, where we just literally picked up the ball, he's ran forward the business part of 60 yards, 70 yards, sees that there's options on either sides of him, completely ignores that, has a little toe bash home. I've got no problem with that as soon as it goes in the goal, because let's face it was a great finish. Left the keeper for dead. Ran off with a terrible celebration, right? If I had a criticism of that goal, it'd be celebration was poor. But all joking aside, it was a great piece of ownership. And the reason why I want to mention that level of accountability is because that's something we've been screaming out for. It's just someone to go, listen, right, let's get moving, let's go for it. And just in that moment, that's exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to go for it. He wanted to drive for it. It would have been easy for a guy, and I'm going to be honest with you here, Kev, right, in terms of where I think his own particular journey has been. You've talked to the guy who's been brought back in at the cold and stuff, totally valid. But for him to pick that up and have the courage and a bit of bravery to go, do you know what, I'm just going to have a pop at this. I've done quite literally the hard yards. I'm going to have a wee pop at this. I'll take 0 points off it because it's a toe poke. Some of them are the most effective you can get. And as I say, slots it home brilliantly. And there was a tangible change in the atmosphere for me at Ibrox last night, Kev, because that second goal goes in, we're done. That's it. It's fine. We've got less than half an hour to play. Livingston pretty much dead and buried. So easy just to change the whole feel, visceral feel of the game by scoring not only a great goal, but just, finishing the game as a contest.
Yeah, I think that was more in relief that we weren't going to have to sit through extra time with the support, with the way the weather was and the way the performance was up until that point. But as a goal, it is brilliant, right? He does, and it was interesting that beforehand, apparently David Martindale said he wanted Borna Barisic to play. Now, I don't think that was a slight against Borna Barisic. It's just that when Borna wouldn't have done that, right? Ridvan's game he's not nearly as half effective at crossing as Borna is, but Ridvan's strength is his passing and his moving and getting the team up the pitch because he'll bring people with him. And you're right at that point. Now, David Martindale was very critical of his own team, the fact that nobody thought to maybe put a tackle in a wee man and just let him go, but that takes nothing away from the run and the big dirty toe poke from the edge of the area. I agree with you, mate. The celebration needs some work, but I don't think he's the most natural goal scorer. He's certainly not an Albert's running from left back, as we've seen at the start of his Rangers career. But listen, if he scores a couple more of them, he can do all the daft celebrations he wants, because we need goals in this team.
We do, right? So we mentioned it a little bit before. Now, I want to be completely fair, right, in terms of where we're at. I thought Sam Lammers played better last night, right? I really do. I think that some of the skill he has in terms of keeping the ball away from a man and around him, because depending on obviously where he is in the park, depending on how he's being marked, he could have a man to the side of him, could have a man in front of him, could have a man come behind him. And I think his close ball control is absolutely fantastic. There's one thing that's a slight criticism within that, is that he maybe does it just once too many times. And that's fine, right? That'll kind of come out of it. There was a couple of times, I think, and you said this earlier on, Kevin, and I think it's a great point, which I want to make sure that we do talk about, is that Tav tried to set Lammers up. The Sima goal, which was the own goal that was given to Sima for the third goal, was 110% him looking to feed the ball to Cyril Dessers. And there's a part of that whilst we have to play these guys and they're not at anywhere near top capability, or should I say the reason as to why we signed them, whatever skill and talent capability we saw, the reason as to why we signed them, they're nowhere near that in terms of Dessers, Lammers, etc. I do understand as to why the team are trying to feed them, because it would probably help boost the confidence a little bit. See at 3-0, Kevin, see if we'd got a penalty, I wouldn't even have had necessarily an issue giving it to Dessers just to get my goal. Mm-hmm. Lammers, I thought, played better. I thought he looked like he can definitely contribute. There is a footballing brain in there. So I thought he did. I thought he did. That's all. I don't going to say he did well because I think there were some things that he didn't do brilliantly. So it was about a par performance. Dessers, even with that 30 minutes ish that he got. In fact, that's a lie. Sorry, beg your pardon. Get the whole second half. I'm thinking about the Yilmaz substitution later on. Even with the whole second half, I struggle to see it, and I hate criticising players, but it's now becoming a problem.
There was one instant where I think he checked onto his left foot, and he could have had a shot, and then he checked onto his right, and he still never took the shot. And it's something that forwards do when they're lacking in confidence. If you're a confident striker, you'll hit it at your left foot, and if it goes wide, it goes over, whatever, you come back and get the next one. But when you're lacking that wee bit, and I do think it's a great point that both, and I think perhaps it shows that there is a bit of unity in the squad, because Tav could have quite easily hit that and nobody would have blamed him, right? Seema could have probably had a shot because he did 2 shots already from that sort of angle. Both of them try to set up their teammates. So that shows you that they've got faith in them. And it also shows that they're trying to be a good teammate and give them that wee leg up. So from that point of view, it's good to see. But yeah, I mean, Dessers is just bang out of confidence. And it's one of these things that goals will get him confidence. Confidence will get him goals. So what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And is it a case of just keep playing them and hope for the best? Or, I mean, like Lammers, right? We're used to a number 14 who got criticised for not scoring enough goals. Right? Numbers was levelled at Ryan Kent for seasons. That was the phrase used to sort of berate him. Do we judge Lammers just by goals? Because I don't think he was bought as an out-and-out forward. I think he was brought to link the play and do things. I don't want to say a Ronald De Boer. No, but it's a lazy comparison. But you know what I mean?
To be creative. Yeah, to be creative, yeah.
And you're right. He has some lovely bits of skill, but at times he can just fade out the game. And again, a couple of goals will make the world of difference to someone like Lammers. I think if we got between 5 and 10 goals at him this year, I think we'd be quite happy with that. And then it gives you something to build on. But Dessers is the main one for me. It was always going to be a big ass, Cammy, because we sold pretty much, I think, everyone that scored a goal last time when we sold them in the summer or lost them. Kent, Morelos, Cholak, Sakala, Arfield. There's a lot of pace and a lot of goals taken out of the side one way or another. It was always going to be difficult to replace them because I think as a manager, ideally, if you, especially in the forward areas, you would like to sign a forward, have them come in, put them in and out of the team, get them to know the rest of the players that are already playing there in the style you want. The manager mentioned it. The way Cholak did last year, he was brought into an established front line. Not saying it was perfect, but it was established. This year we're having to rebuild the full front line, and that just puts so much strain on players. And look, Dessers has got a couple of goals. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's the next Ali McCoist or something like that. Personally, I don't really think he's that good, but we need to get behind him because there's nothing we can do. We know Kamar Roof is a wonderful player, but we cannot rely on Kamar Roof. So we'll just need to hope that we find a way to get the best out of Dessers and Lammers.
Yeah, and listen, again, I think Lammers, there was one, I don't know if you'll remember this particular incident, Kevin, but there was one where directly in front of me, I sit in the main stand, so literally directly in front of me in the Copeland. Lovely piece of skill out in the line. He had a look up, put a lovely pass through, and then I think we came up with a rule all on our own that I think every single Rangers player had to touch the ball first before you were allowed to have a shot in goal. And I mean, that eventually did happen. It went straight over the bar. And Lammers is creating these opportunities. There's a part to me where I do get, you're totally right. I don't know if he needs goals. I think if he can be involved in the creation of goals, whether that's assists, secondary assists, however you want to kind of go down the stats route with him. But I think being involved in a move which eventually ends up in the scoring, I think ticks a box for him, right? I'm quite happy with that because I can see flashes of it. Dessers probably now needs to look at the opportunity that he's going to have with our two best strikers now out injured. There's a part to me where I probably need him to show character. And I know that's a big ask, right? Because if he's out of confidence, he's not scoring goals, he's frustrated. You hit the nail on the head earlier on. It's does confidence breed goals? Goals breed confidence. It's so difficult for strikers. I want him, and I want the manager, I want the coaching staff, I want his teammates to be the guys around him that says, "Look, you are going to get your chance. You've got it in terms of the temporary, and hopefully short-term injuries to Ruth and Danilo. So right now we have to rely on you. That's pressure, but listen, you're at one of the world's biggest football clubs. Pressure is part and parcel of the role, right? So therefore, take the opportunity. Look at it as an opportunity. I just think there's so many fans now, and I do see how did we bring this guy in and get rid of Cholak and stuff? Listen, let's rewind the tape back a few months, all right? These guys that you've mentioned, Morelos, Cholak, Kent, etc. See if these guys were performing, Kevin, we wouldn't get rid of them. So that's an unfair comparison straight out the gate. Dessers is struggling big style, and he needs to be able to prove to this fan base as to whether or not he's got what it takes to play at Rangers.
He does. There's a saying that without pressure, you don't get diamonds. So you're right. He has to take it on board. He has to. Do you know the easiest way you can win us over, Cammy, is by working your balls off.
Aye, right? Exactly. Yeah.
Run, press, like you did for the Celtic goal, right? Whatever press that we set up, go and do it. Even if you've no chance of winning the ball now, I'm not asking you to sprint, right? But that way where you see like a left centre back bringing the ball out unopposed and we're dropping back and there's no pressure, going over and challenge him, make him play the ball quickly, make him play the ball backwards and then get back in a position. Look at Todd Cantwell. When Cantwell arrived, we all went, blonde, likes his Instagram pictures and all that. Oh, I don't know if the Rangers support will take to him. I think he was booked about 6 games in a row, throwing himself into challenges, hustling about, then a wee bit of skill and stuff like that. Quickly becomes the poster boy of the support. You can win us over. It can be done, but it's goals and it's effort. Effort is the easiest thing to give. Give the right amount of effort, you'll get the goals. We don't care if you miss 3 chances, but go back and have the balls to go and finish the 4th one. McCoy's made a career out of it. Just shrug them off. Don't let it get you down. Go back and ask for more and get in the box, get in the mixer. And as you say, once you play long enough with people like Lammers, you'll learn what sort of passes he likes. I'm a really firm believer, Cammy, in that strikers play the type of balls that they would love to receive. So this is like the training ground stuff. This is where you need to have the conversation of what you're doing and what sort of moves you like to do. Do you like it right into feet or do you like it knocked in front of you? And the last thing you can do is learn the offside law.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, very true. Very true. Kev, obviously we mentioned there the game is put out of sight at this point, even more so when a Seamer cross into Dessers is deflected into his own box, into his own goal, I beg your pardon, by DeLucas. And then the cherry on top of the icing, on top of the cake, is delivered by Ryan Jack, who gets a delicious square ball put in by James Tavernier. There's a step over from Scott Wright, who obviously hears the shout. I shan't lie, even at 3-0 up and in the proper dying embers of the game, Kevin, I was on my feet at this stage before Jack had even touched the ball, screaming for him to hit it because I'd seen far too much tippy-tappy in and around the box, and I was like, don't take a touch on it, just hit it first time. Thankfully he did, and 4-0 Rangers. Now, the reason I want to mention this goal, because again, like you say, we don't want to pick it all apart and take it from stuff like that as well, but there has to be a little bit of a focus on James Tavernier here. I thought Tav is struggling, right? Let's be honest. I totally appreciate he's the captain. I totally appreciate what he has done for Rangers. I think it's fine. I don't think there's any harm whatsoever to say that he has lost a bit of pace because Father Time catches up with us all. That's cool, right? He's not the guy that we got the business end of 10 years ago, right? That's all fine. But there was elements last night, Kevin, where I honestly think from about 60 minutes onwards, it really looked like he was taxing having to run up and down that line. He's incredibly fit, right? And thankfully, Touchwood is really injured. However, I think we're going to have to start seriously looking at how much we can try and get out of them. Livingston were done last night, right? They were done after the second goal. And I'm not saying that it's sloppy defending, because actually there was some great creativity around this fourth goal. But Tav he's got so many miles in those legs, and I was stunned that when we made that, that treble substitution a couple of minutes before full time, and you see Dijon Sterling and he's going to come on. I was stunned to see Tav still in the park after that array of subs. I want to try and see the way we can rest them, but I just don't know where we do it now.
It's really interesting to hear the managers talk about how good a player Sterling is, and twice he mentioned it last night about playing Tav one forward. Now, if you are a manager and you have an aging player, you have then got to sort of say to yourself, okay, what does he give us? Set plays, crosses, goals, okay. What is he lacking? And as you say, he's lacking pace. Listen, I'm not saying he's turned into Oleg Solenko overnight or anything like that, but he's definitely lost a yard or two.
Yeah, but he's not. But to that point, no. Sorry to interrupt, but to that point, I think it's fair to say that he's slower, but he's not slow.
Yes.
And I think people are calling him slow unfairly now. That's a kind of. I've got to be honest. I will absolutely defend the captain there. I've seen some of that, and I thought, nah, that's just slightly turning the dial a wee bit just to suit your view on him.
Yeah, 100%. But I mean, if you look, we always talk about formations as football supporters, right? 4-4-2, 4-3-3, yada yada yada. If you look at the game last night, a lot of times you were finding that like Ryan Jack was playing at more of a right back position, or even Lammers was there, and Tav was one forward. Now I don't know if this is in the manager's thinking of pushing him that one line further forward as the sort of modern speak goes. And would we see a 4-4-2 with Tav at a midfield in front of Sterling? Is that the future? Who knows? But we spoke earlier on, Cammy, that this is a game, and I think we sat here and said this last year against Dundee. I think it was under Van Bronckhorst. Like, why is Tav playing in this game? Dundee were in the lower league at that point. Again, was it just because of two managers under pressure? And we spoke about how the team for so often has looked for someone else to do something. Far too often, Tav has been that man. Give the ball to Tav and he'll make something happen. But I agree, Tav will not be here in 5 years. He'd be a wonderful servant. If Dijon Sterling is going to be the man to replace him for a sort of long time, we hope that's true. But he's a very different player. He is not the right wing back, if you want to use that phrase. He is the right back, and he said that himself. Like, I'm here to defend. Anything else you get is a bonus. So it's going to be interesting going forward this season and next season how we use Tav, because eventually we need to phase him out and replace him with someone else. So it's always hard to be critical of Tav, because no matter what you can throw at him, you can never fault his effort, and he will always ask for the ball, and he'll always try and do something because he's just done it for so long.
Yeah, I mean that's so true, right? And he's never gonna, in my eyes, he's never gonna tarnish the legacy of what he's delivered at Rangers, and whether or not you're talking about 55 European finals, the Scottish Cup, the journey in terms of being able to try and come back to that stuff as well. He will rightly go down in Ibrox Folklore as one of our greatest servants. I totally understand that. I think that there is a point, though, and I think you're right, that we can't allow him to physically pay the price because of the fact that the manager's toiling. But we come back to what we've mentioned already. Make it easier for ourselves, and then we can start to give ourselves the opportunity to rest these players. Maybe it is going to be a case of we have to try and be a little bit more ruthless and arrogant when we're playing against opponents that we know that we should be beating relatively comfortably. But at the same point, if we can finish this game as a contest, go 2 goals up, 3 goals up, let's look at being able to try and take Tav out of the equation and give him a bit of a rest and stuff. And I think there'll be another couple of players that could fall into that camp as well. Kevin, we've progressed past Livingston in quarterfinals. We now head to Hampden, weekend of the 4th and 5th, to play on what I'm fairly sure will be the Sunday, once the park has turned into a complete tatty field, against Hearts of Midlothian. A trip to Hampden, always fun for Michael Beale. We will obviously get closer to the game. We will obviously talk about it with great extent, both here on Extra and the preview to it and the show that you guys do on our network, which is just absolutely fabulous in terms of the detail that your preview show goes into. Between Hearts, Hibs, Aberdeen, it was 6-5 and pick 'em for me in terms of what the preferred opponent would have been. I know Aberdeen have a cup final against us at Ibrox on Saturday, but I couldn't care less who we played in the semi. Right now, I am literally not looking beyond that semi-final because of Michael Beale. I'm hoping that game is far enough away that we will see some key players returning from injury, but we cannot take anything for granted, Kev. We are not so trophy-laden that we can be nonchalant about it, as I said at the start.
No, you only need to look back over the last couple of years. It's not been Celtic that has always knocked us out of these competitions. We remember St Mirren, St Johnstone, Aberdeen at semi-final stage. So no, we're in no position to take anything lightly. I think Michael Beale, you spoke about Aberdeen in a cup final. Right now, every game's a cup final for Michael Beale. He has to beat Aberdeen at the weekend, and he has to go into Europe, hopefully get another 3 points in the Europa League group, and then he has to progress v St Mirren, which will be tough in the league before the international break and before he gets some players back. I agree, Cammy. There's not a lot between the sides left in the competition.
Well, the other three sides.
Yeah.
Us certainly separately, yeah.
Then when we get, hopefully we get a good performance in the semi-final, we get to the final, and then we try and get this. One of the last few monkeys to get off our back since returning has been our League Cup. As you say, it's always been looked on as a Rangers trophy since it probably got rented out from Ibrox to the SFA during the 80s. We just sort of gave them a lend of it for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's true. But I mentioned injuries there, Kevin. I'm fairly sure that the next Call of Duty is going to be based up at Auchenhowie, given some of our medical travails at the moment. But yeah, we're just going to have to grin and bear it at the moment. Aberdeen, listen, I couldn't agree with Richard Goff more when he said that Aberdeen pretty much play 4 times a season. They will be coming to Ibrox to do whatever they possibly can to scupper us. I don't want to overthink it because I hate treating them like as if all of a sudden that we're playing Real Madrid. We need to give them with the absolute minimum amount of respect that they're due. However, we are in an injury crisis, right? There's no getting away from it. But I am confident about being able to beat them at Ibrox. I do think it will be a tough game. I need the players to go out and see this as this is your chance to really take the opportunity that's presented to you in terms of a makeshift midfield, a makeshift forward line. We're not going to have a plethora of options on the bench. I want Michael Beale to go out and face this because I think that if he's looking to be able to stop the tide, I think a victory against Aberdeen goes a long way to do that.
It does. A performance would help. I think our defence will be more severely tested than it has been recently against Motherwell. Motherwell played quite well. They've got really nothing up front. Livingston offered very little up front. And even Real Betis, who a good sort of team, but again, I can't really remember Jack Butland having too many outstanding saves to make. So Aberdeen will offer, with Duke and Majowski, certainly more of an attacking presence. But if you look at their form recently, it's only just picked up. A good performance in Germany where they narrowly lost, and then a good result last weekend where they actually used in midfield rather than just putting the ball over their head. So that sort of helped them. But again, it's a team out with Celtic at home in the Scottish League. We should always be looking to win that pretty straightforward. Even when Celtic play, we should be looking to win the game, but you get my point. It should always be looking to be a straightforward victory for us. Aberdeen will raise their game. We say it every time we play them. They treat it like a cup final, and then the next week they inevitably go out and lose or drop a couple of points. So we know what to expect. The management team should know what to expect from Aberdeen. How Aberdeen will play it, will they come and have a go? I think they'd still be silly not to. If you were to unfortunately put your Aberdeen hat on, they'd be better to come and have a wee go at Rangers and see what they can get. But hopefully we should still have enough, I would suspect, with the players that we've got available to win this game by a couple of goals.
Yeah, one thing I don't want to do, and listen, Michael Beale has been guilty of this, by the way, but one thing I don't want to do, Kev, is overthink it. All we have to do is be able to go and listen, do you know what? We've beaten Real Betis. We've beaten Motherwell. Again, a caveat that by not saying a great performance. We came up against a Livingston team that quite clearly does not prioritise the League Cup, but they were stuffy. We had to break them down. They were sticky. We had a couple of injuries within that game that we had to rejig, in play our approach to it, and we still came out as fairly comfortable winners. So therefore, let's use that as a confidence boost, being able to try and get into it. I talk so much in this show, Kevin, about using it as a platform. A platform. Christ, at this rate, I think I've been in more platforms than Super Mario. But what I want us to be able to do is just take the positives away from that last game and move them into that, and then give those players that boost. Like I've been saying to Sam Lammers, look, I can see more of it now. I can absolutely understand what you're trying to do within this. I need more of it from you. Take the challenge, get the bull by the horns, and drive on with it and stuff. So I don't want to overthink it. I don't want us to then think that we need to be able to try and move people around and do X, Y, and Z and stuff, because it's not really necessary. I need to look towards my lieutenants, and I need to look at guys, and I would look in particular, by the way, at guys like John Lundstrom. Played a bit better. I thought he was pretty decent in the last couple of games. I thought he started to recover some fairly solid performances. We know that midfield's impacted by some of those injuries. I mean, Christ, we've missed Raskin, we missed Cantwell. Looks, possible now as well that we are going to go with a similar midfield to last night. Again, I thought Cifuentes played well within that. But when I talk about the lieutenants in the team, I talk about some of those guys and maybe take a little bit of weight off Tavernier. Lundstrom can do that. Lundstrom can be the guy that says, look, I'll do the screaming and shouting. You focus in your game. We know what you can contribute. We need you being able to try and do those excellent deliveries. The stuff that Tav can do, Lundstrom can be responsible for, giving people a bit of a kick up the arse around them.
Undoubtedly. I was watching him quite closely last night because, as you say, he's come back into a wee bit of form. We're not sitting here saying he's suddenly turned a corner. And although I did hear the John Lundstrom is the best on earth song that I've not heard for about a year the other night at Ibrox, but he has, and he's been demanding the ball more. And again, we spoke earlier about strikers being confident. Midfielders sometimes, when they're not confident, will do the pointy thing of give it to him, he's open. Recently, Lundstrom been saying, give it to me, demanding the ball, and then he knows what sort of pass he's going to do. It's a wonderful balls out to Yilmaz last night, switching the play, speeding things up, and it's so important. I mean, we had that a lot when Stephen Davis was sort of in that role. Lundstrom is now playing slightly like that. He's that wee bit more physical than Stephen Davis, but it's about moving the ball and keeping the ball and just being brave on the ball. It's so easy just when you've got a low block you're playing against and you can play it to your two centre halves, take it, give it back to them. It's boring to watch. Doesn't really achieve anything. But yeah, recently Lundstrom has been taking ownership, like we spoke about earlier on. He's been trying to make things happen, and similar to Yilmaz's run the other night, he just ran a couple of times. Even against Motherwell, he was picking the ball up and running through the midfield with it. And most football players will tell you that the worst thing that they hate defending against is people running at them, because it makes them commit, it makes them do something. So yeah, more of that from John Lundstrom, and like you say, try and share this responsibility about them. And really interested to see how Sima does at the weekend, because again, if he was to get a goal here, suddenly he's on a run of goals, you know what I mean? And then suddenly it becomes a thing. Much like the clean sheets, we've all been grumbling because we're not scoring enough, but quietly the defence has been tightened up, and it's been really good since Ben Davies came back into it. So suddenly you find yourself on a run of no conceded a goal. So let's hope that this is the sort of base and the start of good things to come.
Yeah, listen, absolutely. I think that's it. And we're getting there. That's the most important thing I can say, is that we're starting to get there and stuff. And I think, and I hate saying it because it raises them, and I think it gives us a little bit of a disservice. But I hate Aberdeen, Kevin. I hate them. I hate the fact that they think that they're big time and they haven't been big time in the business end of 40 years. So as far as I'm concerned, it's always nice to be able to try and put a fairly convincing win off them. do me a favour, Rangers, beat them 6-0 on Saturday. I'm cartwheeling out of Ibrox, so let's go for it. Kevin, that'll do us for this week's show. Thank you so much for coming on. I do want to give a big shout out to your excellent preview show on our Patreon site, Heart and Hand, patreon.com/Heart and Hand. It's one of the most popular shows in the network. As I say, you and I can play at these kind of things when we talk about previewing some of the shows, but you, Stephen, Big Alex, you really go into some brilliant detail on that show. It's absolutely fantastic. You've done a few live broadcasts across the course of that. My hope is that that'll be coming back across the course of the rest of the season. But thank you so much for being an excellent guest this week.
Oh, thank you for the invite, mate, and thank you for the kind words about the preview. I should say that as we've recorded this, Rangers have confirmed that Sunday, the November the 5th at 3 p.m. will be the semi-final. We'll maybe do a live show should, touchwood, we get to the final. But no, thank you, mate, for the invite.
I am stunned people that we are playing this Sunday. So yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you get a ticket for the semi and you get along to Hampden, maybe worth bringing whalies and maybe some forks or whatever, just so we can start sticking, the divots back in the ground and all that, because Christ knows what that crap park will look like at that point. But anyway, there you go. So we're on this Sunday, the 5th of November. Thank you, everyone, for listening. As I say, jump on over to our Patreon site if you fancy hearing even more great content. We are going to be coming thick and fast with games, so there's loads of great stuff on there as well. Thank you to our show sponsors for extra Zenith coins. Head on over to zenithcoins.com. You'll see the Rangers coin on there, plus some other clubs in there, which I think might tickle your fancy. My thanks to the executive producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Miles. David will be back with you on Flagship as per on Monday to cover all of the game against Aberdeen on Saturday afternoon. Have a brilliant weekend, folks. Let's hope that Rangers make it a great one for us, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.